Breaker Crunchers. It is Friday night in Phoenix, Arizona. We are the Couch Crunchers. My partner in crime next to me, Sam, is on tonight. Max is out of town. Say hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
And Tyler will be on shortly, as well as our special guest, Mike from the Grizzled Geek.
I feel like I'm moving at an incredible rate.
Their show ends right after ours. So he did say he'd be a couple minutes late. So, but yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight. We are going to talk about the latest episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But first, I would like to know, Mr. Samuel, master of Hydra's domain, are you watching anything?
Oh, dude, I found this really great show on Netflix. It's this really quirky anime. It's called The Way of the House Husband. And it is so funny. So it centers on this character. His name is Tatsu, but he has... Hey, Sarah, how's it going?
Hi, Sarah.
He has this moniker given to him when he was a member of the Japanese Yakuza, the Immortal Dragon. And he retired from being a gangster, and now he dedicates his life to cooking for his working wife. And
kind of sounds like the plot of the beginning of Nobody. Huh?
It does sound a lot like Nobody. Sounds a lot like John Wick. Only he's not itching to get back into the life. He just does everything, the cooking, the cleaning, everything he does with the same flair and the same style as he did when he was a Yakuza. It's pretty short. There's 5 episodes. Each episode has 3 or 4 little vignettes, and some of them center on a cat, but most of them center on Tatsu and his efforts to make life livable for his working wife.
That's hysterical. And does his wife do anything that's like cool or anything? Or
no, she works in interior design.
Oh yeah,
she works in design. She's a nice gal.
It tracks. Well, dude, so Amazon Prime this last week or the week prior, I'm not sure exactly when it came out. They came out with a show called Them, right? Which is kind of this new vein of these horror movies, Jordan Peele-esque, having to deal with like racism and stuff. And I enjoyed it a lot. I really liked it because it reminded me of Get Out and Us, and I really like those movies.
Sure.
And so my wife and I finished it. She liked it. There was a couple eyebrow raising moments that we were like, what the hell is going on? But we finished it. We loved it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Them. So then I'm like, okay, I wonder what other shows, since I really like this and I like the 2 movies that it kind of reminded me of, I wonder what other shows there are that kind of deal with this subject matter. And there's a show on HBO Max called Lovecraft Country on HBO Max and HBO. And it stars the actor that just got cast in the new Ant-Man movie as King the Conqueror. I can't remember his name for the life of me. And Jurnee Smollett, I believe her name is. And that is it's like X-Files meets like Get Out and Us. Like it has a racism element, but like kind of like X-Files, the sci-fi type stuff too. And that show is freaking nuts, dude. It's really nuts. So is
it like incorporating Lovecraftian lore into kind of a southern, like a postbellum southern environs?
Yeah, and it's set in like the 1930s or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what time. So racist was at an all-time high at that point, right? And racism, I should say, was at an all-time high at that point. So it really sets the stage, and it's all believable and everything. But it is violent at all get out. The one thing I will say is that in almost every episode, I would say 9 out of the 10 episodes, and don't quote me on that, I'm probably incorrect, so don't tell Matt or Kyle from Absolute Geek. 9 out of the 10 episodes, there's some white people that die in a horrific fashion.
Well, okay, so are there like these monsters in it? Because that's kind of what Lovecraft was really famous for.
Yeah, so there's monsters, there's witchcraft, there's some monsters, witchcraft, there's a celestial element to it, and it's really like just off the wall, like whatever subject they could grab from science fiction type arena, they kind of incorporated it. I mean, there's a spaceship scene, there's monsters in the woods, there's wizards and witches, and they deal with the whole premise of the show. They're looking for this book. It's called the Book of Adam, that is reference to Adam and Eve, and it has like spells in it and stuff. And it's pretty off the wall, dude. Like it's nuts, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. We finished it last night.
Oh, that's good. That's great. Yeah, I'd seen a lot of ads for it and thought about checking it out. Yeah, it's on HBO Max, and so I was waiting for it to come out on HBO Lance.
Yeah, so it's cool. I subscribed to HBO Max through my Hulu account, so it was on Hulu. So HBO Max is kind of a clunky app. I think Hulu and Netflix are much better, much smoother and better designed. So I liked when I'm able to watch the HBO stuff on my Hulu account, but it's good, man. It's good. Now I don't know what we're gonna watch. I mean, my wife and
Way the House Husband. You need to check out Way the House Husband.
I don't know if my wife's gonna subscribe to that one.
No, my wife was sitting next to me watching it, pretending like she wasn't paying attention, and then anytime something funny would happen, she'd snicker, be like, "Okay, this is good."
My wife funny. Just like I'll watch like Simpsons or Bob's Burgers or something like that, and my wife just doesn't get the appeal of the adult animation stuff, so she immediately just checks out. Like whenever I'm watching something, I watched the South Park vaccine special. Mm-hmm. They have a COVID vaccine. It's like an hour-long special that's on HBO Max. I got 15 minutes in, and she goes, "Why do you watch this?" I was like, "Well, it's funny, right? Poop jokes, fart jokes. It's funny." But she just doesn't get the animation part.
Dude, I don't know about your wife, but my wife did enjoy Way the House Husband. She sat down and watched all 5 episodes with me. It's a real quick run. It's like 2 hours for the total series.
Oh, really? Yeah. What's it on?
Netflix.
Oh, it's on Netflix. Family Guy cutscenes are hilarious. I agree, Sarah. I agree. My favorite Family Guy cutscene, and I don't know, Sam, how much Family Guy you've watched to where you could.
I haven't consumed a whole lot.
But there's a scene where they talk about the dumbest people in America or in the world, and it cuts to a scene of the Tucson airport.
Tucson airport. That I am familiar with.
And it is my favorite thing because I was like, see, Hollywood gets it.
At least the guy who runs Family Guy, at least he knows. He understands.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you
we have to put up with here.
But yeah, I'm a Tempe guy. I think you're a Tempe guy, right? We're all, yep. So I hate whenever I have to go to Tucson. So I'd rather stay in Sun Devil country. So
I feel like every time I go to Tucson, something just really dumb happens. Not like maliciously dumb or bad or evil. It's like I'm so frustrated. It just seems like, why does these dumb things keep happening to me in Tucson? Why only in Tucson?
I gotta say though, the best venue I've been to in the state of Arizona is in Tucson. And I can't remember the name of it. It's kind of like the Marquee Theater.
Okay.
And but it's there downtown Tucson. And even though it's a much smaller scale, I do think the Tucson Comic-Con is better than Phoenix.
I enjoyed the panels that we participated in the Tucson Comic-Con, and I enjoyed the people who were there.
Mm-hmm.
But the city itself, for some reason, I just can't get along with it.
Yeah, so maybe the guys from Square Egg should. Is it Square Egg? They
Square
should go.
Egg, they do Comic-Con. Or
Yeah,
Phoenix
they should
Fan
go.
Fusion.
Right. They should go to the Tucson Comic-Con and kind of pick up some new tricks and stuff, I think. The best thing for me is that, like, us being presenters, panelists, I guess you could say, is they treat us like we're doing a service for them, right?
We are.
We're not
We're doing a service. We're providing entertainment for the masses.
Yeah, and we're not treated just like regular guests. So we get to go in through a different entrance. We get to maybe go into some places that aren't otherwise open to regular guests.
Yeah, I think it's a good policy to treat your panelists well. I think they've made the decision not to treat the press passes very well, or to guard their press passes a little more heavily. I think that's a good decision too, because not everybody who says that their press is worthy of getting a free pass. Just because you have a blog doesn't mean that you're entitled to a pass,
Yeah. Yeah, I got a press badge to what's that? Was it Ace Comic-Con? Was that what it was called? The one that was in Coyote Stadium?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I might as well have just paid for the ticket because I got no extra access. Like, I was told on the phone that we were going to get to speak to some of the special guests, like in a forum.
The Marvel stars who were there.
Yeah, like I went on a specific day because Tom Hiddleston was there. And I was like, great, I'm going to get to talk to Tom Hiddleston. This will be awesome. No, he was at a very far distance. I did get to sit like in the pit area. They set the stage up where the ice is, and they allow all the press to sit in these chairs, and then everybody else has to sit in the stands. So I did get to sit in there. But as far as getting to ask Tom Hiddleston a question, that was not happening. Oh, and that same day, Taron Egerton was there as well. So how I feel about Taron Egerton.
Your favorite.
Yep. I love him.
He's not perfect, I know, but
you really dig that song, huh?
That's a good tune.
Yeah, I think it's a good opening song. So there's Mike.
Just in time, Mike, the Grizzled Geek. Looking sharp.
Thank you.
Hey, did you like the little graphic that I made of you?
Oh, that was awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah. It says who the F cares about couch crunchers?
Couch crunchers. Who are those guys?
Hey, you're just in time to answer Lance's hot question of the night.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
That's not it, Lance.
No. Are you watching anything good?
Am I watching anything
you want to
good?
get
what are you watching?
Outside of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yeah, something that doesn't get a lot of play.
I'm actually, television-wise, not a whole lot, other than I've been going from one Disney Plus series to the next. I've been watching.
Did you watch the new one with John Stamos?
No, I have not yet. I have not watched that yet. But I've been watching like movies, I mean, obviously like Kong vs. Godzilla and the Snyder Cut and all that stuff that's come out. But yeah, no, I haven't watched anything recently as far as like series goes. So sadly,
have you seen Way of the House Husband, Mike?
No, I've not seen it yet.
It's on Netflix. It's a little anime series. It's real brief. It's like 2 hours.
My daughter watched it because she's I think it showed up on her. She watched all the anime on Netflix, so she was telling me about it. I was in the room while it was playing, but I hadn't actually got a chance to watch it yet. So
that's funny. I like that one.
Yeah,
because you're a big anime fan, right, Mike?
More and more. Kirsten's the big anime person. She's kind of keeps, trying to get us to watch more anime. So I've been, she exposed us to more.
Something. Are you gonna go see the Demon Train or the Demon Slayer movie on April 23rd?
Yeah, I want to. It's one of those things. Kirsten's supposed to film like getting me and Doug caught up on Demon Slayer, Grizzled Weeb, episode that we're going to do
Grizzled
beforehand.
Weeb, I like that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's her show that she does. So we do a show called Does It Hold Up, where we subject her to 80s stuff that we loved that we haven't seen in a while, and we all watch it together to see if we'd still love it. Usually I should change the name of it to Destroying My Childhood, one old movie at a time.
Oh, does she totally wreck it?
No, because they usually don't hold up for us either, right? Because it's something you watched in the 80s and you're like, oh, I love this when I was a kid. And then you're like, you got to see this. So you bring a millennial in to watch it with you and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then we watch it together like, wow.
All right, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Have you guys covered the Punky Brewster scary episode?
We have not done. We're trying to. All right, Punky Brewster's on the list of what we want to do.
Gotta
right?
do the scary episode.
The scary episode.
I think it's like Camp Nightmare or Camp Peril. I can't remember what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, we did. On a series wise, we did like A-Team and The Incredible Hulk and Greatest American Hero. A lot of it we do the movies or whatever, right? And then so that's what we do. We subject a millennial person to this, and then we kind of all see if it holds up. And then the reverse of that is her show, The Grizzled Weeb, where she takes us who are not as into anime as she is, and she just subjects us to anime, and we watch that.
Put House Husband on your list of
House
shows.
Husband. You got it.
Good one.
You got it.
If I may, I'd also like to submit Time Bandits for Does It Hold?
Oh yeah,
Time Bandits definitely. It's one of the ones we hadn't got to yet because there's so many great 80s stuff.
Yeah, the ending of that movie still haunts me. I saw it as a child, and it's still
yeah.
Don't touch it, it's evil.
So Mike, give us a little preview. Which movie or show didn't hold up the worst? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, which one didn't hold up?
Yeah. Like notable mentions, I think I should say.
Ones that stand out to me is Lady Hawk, which I loved, and I still love, right? But when you realize that I didn't pay attention to the score when I watched it, it's like this pop synth score going on, with this fantasy epic, and after Kristen pointed it out, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Holy, I did not. And
it's the 80s. I mean,
right? And then the writing scene, they ride past the same patch of rocks like 5 times in the movies, no matter where they're at. It's little things you catch, right, when you're watching again. My favorite episode, though, is Flash Gordon, and the reason why is because Kirsten went through probably the first hour of that movie not realizing this isn't a movie about the Flash, DC superhero, right? And she's like, when is he going to get fast?
Like he doesn't get fast, he listens to Queen.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a favorite one. And it makes sense because we were totally confused because we do like a beforehand, then we watch it, and then we do like a review afterwards. And the beforehand, she was saying stuff that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but does. Then when you realize that she thought it was about the Flash. So
that's even better though. Just have her go into it blind. Like, hey, we're gonna watch. Like, don't give her a time to wiki it or anything.
No,
just say we're gonna watch this. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
We go into it and we go here's what we're gonna watch, right? And then we make her guess what based on the title or the DVD cover if we have that, right? What she thinks the movie's about, right? And so she gives what she thinks it's gonna be about. And then we watch it, and then we do a review. So it's fun. It's one of my favorites that we do. So
I kind of go through that with my wife, who lived a very sheltered childhood. Right?
He shows her porn all the time. What do you think of the Cassie couch, honey?
In a different kind of couch cruncher. In my younger days, back in the band and stuff, I used to be part of this. It was called Come As You Are. It was an ensemble group, and we used to put on live productions of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I'm a big Rocky Horror fan.
Yeah.
And my wife had never seen it. I showed it to her a year ago, and she completely dismantled it. Like, she's like, why do you watch this? It's so weird.
Because you can't watch it. You have to experience it, right? If you're going to do Rocky Horror, you have to go to a Rocky Horror show. You can't just watch it because you sit down and watch it. It's weird. It's like, what is this? Right? You got to go there. Just going back to college days. Oh yeah, the Rocky Horror Picture Show weekends. Rocky Horror Picture Show is something you have to go to and experience. You can't just like watch it. I can't imagine sitting down and watch it with somebody who's never seen it before. They'd be like, "What is this?"
Well, it's weird. Like when she was talking, it's about a transsexual alien, essentially, that's going around trying to essentially rape everybody. Like, you know, like, so the premise doesn't hold water, but she started to second guess her marriage to me. Like, I'm into weird stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but when I watch it, I think of all those times because the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't get this. My parents had like an old VHS of it, and I saw it when I was like maybe 15 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't get this. Then when I turned 18, I started going with my buddy to go see this thing, and I just fell in love, dude. I've probably seen that movie 400 times. So when I watch it now, I think of all those times. Right. The other one that she didn't get was Phantom of the Paradise, which is basically like a rock version of Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Where he's haunting a music venue and stuff. It's a fantastic movie. But she just doesn't get it. I thought she would have loved it because these are musicals, but no. So my wife consistently dismantles things that I cherish.
Yeah. It's interesting when you see something through somebody else's eyes for the first. That's why it's so fun, because you're like, okay, you have what you remember it being, right? And then you have you're looking at it with new current eyes, and then someone's seen it for the first time now, right? So it's
Tyler.
What's up?
So if you guys don't know, Mike, who's a good friend of the show, is from the Grizzled Geek, which is a show that airs just before ours. Mike is we've been friends now for what, 2 years now, Mike, I think. About 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And he agreed to come on tonight because Max was going to be out of town. And I always like to have 4 people because I think those conversations are the strongest. So Mike, can you so you guys are on every Friday at 6:00?
Yep, every Friday at 6. We go on for an hour. Basically just weekly wrap up of nerd news kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously we get a lot more listens than we do actual views. People have voted. They've seen us and decided we have faces for for podcasts. Radio. Yeah, exactly. So we got a lot more. It's it's been growing recently, so we got a lot more in the podcast side of things, right? Like Stitcher and all those. I have no idea how much because they don't tell you on Apple how many downloads you get, but we get all our other numbers. So, and they're all up compared to our views. But we have a loyal group of following, that listens to us live, and then we have people that listen to. We have like 3 groups. We have the live group, which is a small group, listens to us on Fridays, and then Saturdays is like another group that comes in and watches, and then Monday. So it's like 3 different times we get like groups watching the show.
Just big buckets of people.
Yeah.
So you guys have several different things that you do. I know you do what is it, Ruby?
Yep, we do. We react to Ruby. We have a big Ruby fan base there. That Ruby's got a huge fan base, right? So we got a big group that that watches. We react to that when it's on. It just ended the season. But when it's off, we do Ruby AMVs, where people put together music videos, animated music videos based on Ruby. So they take scenes from the series and they put it to like music, right? And we react and kind of judge those. And it's become a thing where people suggest they want us to judge theirs. And we rate it from 1 to 10. I'm like, if you want to be judged by us, show it. So we sit around and judge people with far more talent than we have on a weekly basis. So it's that's on Tuesdays. Ruby Tuesdays is. So we put
that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's perfect. That's easy to remember too.
Unless you're back east and don't have Ruby Tuesdays and know what that is, and then it's just kind of, why you guys put it on Tuesdays?
Google it.
Yep, Google it. There's a reason.
Ruby Tuesdays is gone, right?
I think so. I don't think it is around anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, they used to have one down the street from my house at Superstition Springs Mall, and it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
The other one I miss is TGI Fridays. Something about all the restaurants that had a day of a week in their name.
Exactly. Yeah. And brings you back.
So we're gonna get into our main topic of the night, talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5.
Yep.
Which so far is the longest episode of the series to date. I think with credits, it was 60 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Just shy of an hour.
Yeah.
Just shy of an hour, which I love. More content, the better. Holds me over a little bit longer into the next week. But real quick synopsis: it's following directly after the last episode. The new Captain America, pseudo Captain America, he did something bad. Now he's being tried for it, and we start to see that transition, him from Captain America, and that mantle being taken up by someone else. Without getting into too many spoilers, we'll get into spoilers in a minute. But
I was gonna say, is this non-spoiler? Because
yeah, well, I usually give like a quick, brief synopsis of, without spoiling, and then we throw the spoilers warning.
Got it. I was gonna say, if it's gonna be non-spoilers, you have to bleep me out,
So, yeah, and they're still looking for Carly Montague.
No,
Montague.
I thought it was Morgenthau.
Morgenthau.
Yeah. Oh, Montague is Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
So they're still looking for her, and that's basically what happened in this episode. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, stop watching.
Go watch it. Come back and watch us after.
We're getting into spoiler time. So, and it's not episode 4. Where'd my episode 5 just go? Mr. Mike.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on this episode. You are our guest, so you get to go first. I want to hear what you have to say, especially because you have more comic book background knowledge than the three of us do.
Yeah.
Which is not hard. I mean, we're practically zero.
Well, I have a bit more than most of my crew.
All my comic knowledge. All my comic knowledge is just One Piece. That's all I have.
But mine dwarf to Mike. So, Mike, tell me what you think.
Let's see here. I like the episode. I like the character development, the showdown, which I think is the end showdown, but the initial showdown between the three in the beginning, I think was a good way to, kick off what would be not a whole lot of action episode. It was more story-driven episode, which is fine because it's kind of like the slow, the quiet before the storm. Because the next episode is probably gonna be crazy. I like the fact they have
one too, right?
Yeah, it is. Yep. I like the fact they have Countess Valentina in there. She is, the cameo. She's a great character from the comics. Former Shield agent. She ended up becoming Madam Hydra in the comics at some point. So I don't know what version she's playing in this one, but she was like back in the day. She was like a love interest for Nick Fury. But so she's a great character to see her portrayed.
And let me just say, Samuel L. Jackson could do a lot worse than Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
That is true. That is true.
So go ahead.
I've always been impressed by Wyatt's acting, but I think in this episode really, I was talking to Doug about it earlier. What's great is how Gray made this show, right? Every person in this, if you don't necessarily sympathize with them, you can actually understand where they're coming from. Like every single person, right? It's just different shades of gray. Some are darker than others, obviously, right? And just how Walker was set up to fail. And this kind of episode kind of brings that home with, if you listen to him, especially like his speech when he's getting like stripped of his rank and his pension and all that, in that scene, and he's like, his outburst is, I mean, it's true, right? He did awful things, as people tend to do, but they sent him out to stop this terrorist organization that's killing people, right? And he's not the right person to be Captain America. He shouldn't have been Captain America because he was a propaganda piece, right?
Yeah.
And I think you guys said like last time, like if this was done, if he actually killed that guy inside the warehouse where there wasn't cameras, there wouldn't be any problem, right? They would have no problem. They wouldn't have There's like it's swept under the rug. I mean, he should have brought that guy in. He straight up killed that guy out there and everything. But I think the problem with the superiors isn't that they killed the guy, a terrorist.
It's the PR.
It's the PR. They killed it when there's people with cameras on, right? So,
no, because if they really cared about him killing somebody, he would have been court-martialed.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of stripped him of title and rank and benefits and all these things.
Yeah.
And you could tell it was kind of a show, which happens frequently when somebody high in power gets
absolutely
in trouble.
And when he said that line where "you made me," right? When they set him up to fail, and they're making what he's going to become by doing this PR move of stripping him of his rank, his pension, and the country that the one thing that was most important to him, turning their back on him at this point. That's going to they're going to be somewhat responsible for what's going to happen with him. So we'll see what happens next episode. It's not going to be good.
So I think that this is turning into the introduction of the Thunderbolts. Especially with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think she's kind of the Nick Fury of the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
And the first piece is this Captain America. What's his real name?
John Walker. Yeah.
John Walker. Thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know why I forgot that one.
He's going to be U.S.
kind
agent.
Of the first piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll be U.S. agent.
U.S. agent, and they've got Zemo, right? They got and at first I'm like, oh man, if the Wakandans are going to rescue him, we're never going to see Zemo again. But then they said they're taking him to the raft and not Wakanda. I'm like, oh, he can get out of the raft.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I have a question. So Zemo in the comics, and I'm not as familiar with him from his comics backstory, is he as against super soldiers as he is in the show?
He's against that's kind of something they did for the show. He's against the Avengers in the comics, right? He was a leader of the Masters of Evil, but he became a semi-good guy, kind of like he is now in the show, to kind of taking that aspect of him. Because when he forms the Thunderbolts, he became Citizen V, which was his secret identity. When he basically was a bunch of bad guys posing as good guys to break into the good guys' compound. That's how it started out, the Thunderbolts, right? They were bad guys posing as good guys, and then they liked being heroes. They liked, some of them did, right? So, and then they end up becoming good guys, and that's, I think, the Zemo that we're getting in here in the series.
So I'm just trying to figure out if so in the show he's so against super soldiers, how could he possibly join a team that has John Walker in it?
Yeah. That's a good question. How they, because that's something they set up for the show, the whole anti-supremacy angle of him.
Yeah.
So, which I like. I like that angle, and I like the fact that they kept him true to it.
Yeah, it makes him much more relatable too, right?
Yeah.
It kind of adds some texture to his character.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, I want to know what you thought of this episode.
Okay, so I thought episode 4 was probably the high watermark so far. It's really, really good. I ranted, I raved about it last week. This one was a cool down from episode 4. I'm still waiting for the big debate between Bucky and Sam, and them kind of understanding. But it seemed like rather than having that debate, they off-screened the understanding part. We get to the scene where Sam Wilson is practicing with the shield. They're basically playing frisbee with the shield up against the trees, what down, and Bucky says, "Oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what taking this shield would mean to a black man." And that was like Professor Hulk off-screened his catharsis between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. It's like, okay, that would have been a really cool scene to include in this here story. We need to see that conversation. We need to hear them talk it out. We need to see them come to an understanding. And instead of that, we're just seeing the frisbee throwing, we're getting the sound effects, and then we're coming in after the conversation's already been had. And it's disappointing to me because I feel like there's a lot of debate that, or the ideological debate between the four main characters being Falcon, Winter Soldier, Carly Morgenthau, and of course John Walker. They're the four main characters, and they each have a different position that needs to be understood. And then you also have the two kind of supporting characters, which are Baron Zemo and Sharon Carter, whose sides we've heard a lot from Baron Zemo, but we haven't heard a lot from Sharon Carter. She just got a little bit at her character reintroduction. And so what I really want to see is them discussing the different positions they have. And we didn't get a lot of that. I feel like Sam and Bucky, they're going to have to come to their own decision about the way forward, right? And they're the stand-in for all of us. We're at a point of division in America, and they kind of got a breath of fresh air from that division when they went to Madripoor, and they got to work together without societal notions kind of being reflected upon them, which was nice. It was a breath of fresh air. But now that they're back home, they have to figure out how to work together. And they kind of said, we're friends. We have a mutual friend. And that's kind of they have a hard time admitting that they are friends and that they need each other. And that's kind of like as close as we got. But that's really the heart of the show, is this debate between Sam and Bucky. And they kind of fast forwarded through it. And I was really disappointed by that. The other thing that I thought was strange was the introduction of Madam Hydra. Seems like it's pretty late in the game to be bringing in somebody new like this without context. I don't know who this person is. I know Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a great actress, and so this is someone I ought to be paying attention to. But why? Why now? And why not sooner?
To get you to ask that question for the next week.
And
no answers for you.
Yeah, I don't think it is going to be answered in this series. I think it's going to be a tease.
I think there's going to be ramifications in the future. But I mean, They did the same thing in WandaVision. Here's Evan Peters credits.
Well, you got Elaine. You got to have Disney being the plot Nazi. So,
but then, but at the same time, I was
no plot for you.
Yeah, I was super disappointed to see Baron Zemo get carted off. I think he's such a great foil for Sam and Bucky.
Yeah.
He's the high point of the show.
The three of them had such a great relationship while they were on the run together. And I don't know that there was a better scene than the three of them trying to decide what to do. When they're all on their own, right before John Walker shows up and before the Wakandan Dora Milaje show up, the three of them had this great conversation, and they were all open and honest with each other, even though they had different, distinct points of view. It was like you could see the conversation, the debate moving forward in this new direction that none of them had anticipated. And I've been seeing the memes all over the place where Falcon says, he's off or he's overboard, but he's right. Whatever the line.
He's out of line.
He's out of line, but he's right. And that was a great moment. It's like, yeah, we have a hard time trusting Zemo because he's done a lot of bad things, but at the same time, he brings a lot of right perspectives to the table. And trying to it was just like a catalyst for them to advance their own understanding of the world. and I really appreciated that. So I was really disappointed to see that aspect of the show get put on the shelf for a little bit. I'm hoping he comes back for the finale. And then the other thing is, generally speaking, you have in these type of action shows, you have an internal conflict that once it's resolved, it leads to the resolution of the external conflict. And the internal conflict is how does Sam accept the shield? How does Bucky forgive himself and move on? Those are the two main internal conflicts that we're watching. And it seems like Sam is ready to move forward with the shield. He's got there. And I don't think that we got to the point where we understood why Sam was ready to move forward. It's kind of implied or inferred, and it's left to us to come to our own understanding about why he's ready to move forward with the shield. And maybe that's wisdom on Marvel's part, but maybe it merits explanation too. Maybe it does merit explanation. Maybe there's a lot of people wanting to know what that thought process was where Sam was finally able to pick up that shield and say, I'm ready. Because that's going to lead into the external conflict resolution where he's going to have to take his decision and shine a light on it by facing Carly Morgenthau, by facing John Walker, and facing Zemo, and eventually facing Bucky. And all of those four people are gonna have to test and judge Falcon's decision. Likewise, Bucky, he hasn't found his resolution yet. Still, I'm sure he will. That's probably going to be like the end credits is him talking to, I think his name was Nakajima, about his son. And
because that's heavily implied in this episode. Sam's basically telling him
that he needs to go give him some closure. But he's going to have to shine himself up against Sam and Zemo and Carly and John Walker as well. And it's going to be this battle of perspectives and ideologies and which one is going to win the day. And that's really the exciting part, is that these internal conflicts lead to external conflict and resolution. And I felt like the show didn't really do a very good job of putting that out there for us as the audience to understand where everybody's coming from. Yeah. Sam, is Sam's new resolution going to stand the test that awaits him in the finale? Is Bucky's newfound guidance from Sam going to carry him through the upcoming battle so that he can find his own closure? Those are questions that I would like to know where they're at emotionally, mentally going into this final battle. And then the other thing is kind of a minor aesthetic thing, but I thought it was kind of silly that when the flag smashers showed up at the GRC vote, the lights went from white to red. like did they go in there?
Built in just in case terrorists attack.
Yeah.
Put the red lights on.
It's terrorist mode. Switch it red. Lights go down. The screens go down. The red lights come up. It's like, okay. Who took the time to think that up? Who put those red lights there?
Oh, no. Terrorist red lights are on. We're under attack.
We're under attack.
This is a cool conference room. We got to have our RGB in here.
Yeah, we got to have red lights. If someone's passing around the marijuana, we got to put the green lights up.
Got to put the green lights up, yeah. I will say, to your point, I think we got a little bit more about Sam's decision-making process in that I think his decision-making process came down from the talk with Isaiah, right? So he talks with Isaiah, and he sees the one end of the spectrum there, right? Where you got all this adversity and everything like that, and you can go down one road. And then when he's talking with his sister on the docks there, right, he basically gives the same line. Like, she tells him, like, don't let Isaiah tell you basically who you are. And he's like, what would all that pain be if I didn't stand up and keep fighting? So I think I agree with you. We should have had more of that decision-making process on how he decides to pick up the shield. But I think that's where he makes that decision. We only got a little glimpse of it, but I'd like to have a little bit more. But
yeah, it just seemed to be a really quickly made decision from that point, from the Isaiah point to the woods, and then it has like this old school like 80s montage of him training with the shield.
Hey, we got 2 montages this episode. That's how you know it's a good episode. We got a boat repairing montage and a training montage.
But I think that's my one grief with the show, and maybe I'm being a little haste when it comes to this because we haven't seen episode 6 yet and we don't know what's going to happen, but they've teased a lot of things like who the power broker is, and then they introduce a big actress like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who everybody knows. Just the minute she comes on the screen, you say that's Elaine, you know it. And there's only one episode left. It almost seems like they sped up some of the other things rather than maybe they could have added another episode or something, like, or taken this episode and added on a little bit more and made it 2 episodes. It does feel like some of the decisions that are being made are very quick. Like, we didn't even see, like, John Walker at the end of last episode, he gets filmed. And I was honestly expecting the beginning of this episode was to see that thing go viral, right? And to kind of see the tempers start to raise, people looking at their phones, seeing the video, or Captain America's a murder or whatever. And he never saw any of that. The next time you see John,
that was
Walker,
all just very assumed. Like,
yeah, it could have added to, a little bit to the episode. It just seemed like killing court-martial. Well, not a court-martial, but essentially almost the same thing as a court-martial. Killing court-martial. Like, how much time passed in between these two things that it went that quickly? I mean, we don't even see trials of normal people happening that quickly. You know what I mean? Like, everything just seems very quick now.
Well, they did that little, they raided all the GNR compounds as well, too. So they had that time between when it happened. Who knows how long, because by the time we see Sam and them again, they're talking about what had already happened to them, wrapping up all the GNR people, or the GNR camps, whatever, refugees. So they kind of hinted at some time being passed, but like you said, they just kind of cut to the next the next part of it.
So why not like all we got of that? Like, we haven't seen a representative from the GNR yet, correct? I don't think we've seen anybody that's from that.
No,
company,
GRC. You're talking about GRC?
GRC, thank you.
Yeah, GRC.
GNR,
yeah.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, yes.
Axl Rose wasn't in this episode, and that's why I hate this episode. No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could have been a cool scene, like seeing them going and raiding all these compounds, I guess. Like, it just seems a lot of things that could have been interesting to see weren't put in just for the sake of trimming this down to 6 episodes.
Yeah, I feel like this season has a Spider-Man 3 complex. Like, it's, Spider-Man 3, a huge issue with it was they had, Green Goblin, the Sandman, and Venom all being villains, and they didn't have enough time to spend on any of them, and so they're just,
Spider-Man gets 2 suits, so you have the transition period.
Yes.
There's a lot going wrong with Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than that, but that was like a very main glaring issue with Spider-Man 3, right? So, like, I feel like they're doing the same thing, and they're just trying to pack all this in, and then they're like, oh, by the way, it's only 6 episodes, and you're like, wait a minute. If you're doing all of this, it should be longer. I mean, they made The Hobbit 3 movies. I mean, you can you can make this a little bit longer, but I feel like they're trying to introduce these characters that fans are going to like, and then not giving them their due. They're planning a whole bunch of spin-offs that we haven't heard about, but those are going to be a long way out. So,
well, the thing that made episode 4 so great for me was the tension that was building between all the characters. And this one, it didn't really build tension. It was just kind of a release of all those tense threads. And so a lot of times going into the final act, you do have to kind of let things relax for a little bit and then give the audience a chance to take a deep breath before the real tense stuff begins. But it's also a chance to dive into the characters' minds and do like a temperature check with them, see how they're doing, see what they're thinking. And we only got a little bit of that. And the thing about Isaiah Bradley, I do want to say that I didn't like his first appearance as much as I appreciated the second one. I felt like
some emotional depth in the second one, right?
Yeah. So if you recall, in the second episode, when they go meet Isaiah Bradley, it's immediately followed by this run-in with the cops, and it goes from feeling authentic to feeling like a propaganda piece, you know. Whereas coming to see Isaiah Bradley alone, it really brings out his perspective, and it shows, okay, I have a full understanding now of why he has the bitterness and the resentment that he harbors for the Shield and for the country as a whole, and it informs Sam's decision in that it gives him something to consider, but it isn't the only thing that he considers, right? Isaiah Bradley just becomes one perspective, and it's another one of those perspectives that Sam has to measure his own ideology against. And that's really the impressive part about this series, is that every single one of the antagonists or the characters that they bring in and that they highlight informs Sam's decision regarding the Shield. And that's fascinating. That's really fun. Like John Walker, whenever a character says something more than once, you should really pay attention, because it means that the director or the screenwriter is trying to say something that they can't just say outright. So they say it a lot of times. And the thing that John Walker said a lot of times is, "I am Captain America." And you, okay, well, what does he mean when he says, "I am Captain America"? Because it has a deeper meaning. Otherwise, they wouldn't say it more than one time. They said it twice in that episode. He said it a couple more times throughout the series. So what does he mean when he says, "I am Captain America"? And it made me think about King Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Godzilla was created as kind of a parody or a symbol of post-nuclear US. You know, Godzilla has this nuclear power that he unleashes on Japan, and he just destroys cities, and then he disappears into the ocean, and they don't know whether he's an ally. Sometimes he's an ally, and sometimes he's an enemy. But Godzilla is reckless, and so they don't know whether they can trust Godzilla or not. And that was kind of the sentiment about the U.S., is that you have this nuclear power, and they don't know if they can trust the U.S. or, you know, if it's an ally. And that was at an early time, and, you know, it wasn't long after World War II. And so there's two visions of America. Are we the Steve Rogers version of America, or are we the John Walker version of America? And so when he says, "I am Captain America," it's like, this is the America that I represent. And that's a very deep sentiment, and that's going to inform Falcon's decision with the Shield, and it's going to inform a lot of things in the show. And that's kind of the ideology or the vision that I want to clash. You know, that's what I want to see, is these. It's not just the fists and the fighting. That's cool, sure. But what's more important is, what do they think? And whose philosophy is going to win the day? Whose vision of Captain America is going to win the day? That's the really interesting thing for me.
I think what could have really, and obviously this might not have been feasible with Chris Evans' contract and all that other stuff. But I think that something that would have been helpful to kind of secure why Sam chose to take the mantle, as we see that he's doing, it's just a small scene of him talking to old Steve Rogers, because only 6 months or so or like a year has passed since everybody's returned. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah.
And shown him like going to Steve and saying, why did you choose me? Like, help me understand this. Like, do you know how hard of a decision this is for me? Like, maybe that could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. You know what I mean? Like what kind of pushed him over to the edge to make his decision.
Maybe every time he like says, "Hey, can you give me advice?" he's just like, "No, I don't think I will."
I don't think I will.
No, I don't think I will.
But the other thing is they also whenever they bring up Steve Rogers, they talk about him like he died.
Yeah,
you notice that?
Well, they say he's
he
gone, but they don't know what the. Yeah,
he might have gone back to that timeline he shared with Peggy if it wasn't, if it's a separate timeline or whatever. Or he might have died.
Yeah.
Who knows? Or he could be on the moon, So I think the thing is Sam's got to come to grips with the fact that Steve told him why he picked him, right? He didn't tell him the importance of that, but he did tell him, he's like, I picked you, you're a good man, right? And like Erskine told him, that's what they're looking for, no matter what, right? It's not a super patriot. Walker's a super patriot, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what Captain America is, right? Captain America is doing the right thing. Because when his country wanted to do one thing that was the wrong thing in his eyes, Steve, turned against SHIELD, right? He turned against that, right? So he did the right thing always, and that's what's important, and that's what Sam's going to come to the terms with the fact that that's why he picked you, is because you're going to represent the America that should be, right? The good, right? Sometimes it's sometimes you need to kill terrorists, right? But you're the kind of person who wants to try and talk them down first, right? As where normally like Walker wanted to go in there and arrest her, or whatever.
Not every problem is answered by violence.
Not every problem is answered by violence, and he is a good man because that's his first instinct, is to try and talk him down, not the violent option, right? So he's got to come to grips with the fact that that's why Steve picked him, and that's what Steve wants, to represent the SHIELD, not the country, but the man behind it. So he's just got to come to grips with that, and it's a matter of, and he's seen all these different views of what it means, and I think, Steve told him he didn't go into explanations, but he told him, it's like, you're a good man, right? And that is why, and that's bottom line is that's the main reason out of everything else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Think about this. Think about this real quick. John Walker's speech during his discharge ceremony, or they dress him down publicly.
Yeah.
And he says, "You made me. I did everything that you made me to do."
Yep.
Whereas you have Steve Rogers who stands up and he says, the best hands are still our own, right? We're the ones who need to make the choices.
Yep.
We don't want to give our freedom to somebody else.
Yeah.
Don't let the government decide for us. We are the ones who decide. And what a contrast, right? You have an individual standing up for what's right and leading a whole team of Avengers versus John Walker, who is basically a soldier, or maybe even, just like a puppy dog trying to please his master. And which one of those is the right choice? That's why you can't have a perfect soldier be Captain America, because there's no individual there.
Yeah.
It's just someone who follows orders. And sometimes you have to have someone who does more than follow orders, who can make a choice on their own and make a moral choice that is independent of what the
a true
military
leader
leaders say.
Yeah, and that's not what superiors in government are going to want. They're not going to appoint someone like that.
That was sort of toe the line.
Right.
Yeah, and I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus says something very poignant to that fact is the government thinks that they own the shield, and they don't, right? She says she uses the term legal gray area.
Yeah.
So it's not up to the government of who is the next Captain America. It's up to the people, right? It's up to who the people want to lift up to that mantle. I did want to touch on something when Mike was talking, or we were all talking about, handing over the shield to Sam at the end of Endgame. Did you guys all catch when Bucky says, when Steve told me what he was going to do?
Told me the plan? Yeah.
Told me. So Bucky knew before Steve goes into the portal,
right,
that this was Steve's plan, which kind of changes my viewpoint of the end of Endgame. It kind of made it seem like Steve had this, for the first time in his life, had this like brash decision, but no, it was calculated. It was like, hey, Bucky, I'm going to stay here, and when I come back, I'm going to give Sam the shield.
Right. Which it never says this anyway, or doesn't kind of, but to me, it kind of alluded in the end when you watch Endgame over and over again, right? In their exchange at the end of it, you kind of get the feeling that could happen, that could have been the, and I know me and Doug have talked about this where they say goodbye, right? That's a more.
You're taking all the stupid with you.
Yeah, taking all the stupid with you. That was a goodbye, not a good luck on this mission. In exchange, that was a goodbye exchange, right?
Yeah, and it also explains why Bucky doesn't go and talk to Steve.
Yeah,
because he kind of was already aware that this was going to be happening.
In fact, he nods to Sam to do it. Sam looks back at him and he nods. He gives him a nod, like, "Yeah, go ahead. That's for you."
Yeah. So it kind of where initially when I saw the end of Endgame, that whole transaction seemed a little like weird, like written on a script, right? Like it just seemed like, why wouldn't Bucky, his best friend, go and talk to the old man that he believes is like, it always didn't sit well with me, but I liked that they added this in, that clarification, like, yes, I knew what his plan was. I thought that was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
And it also shows why Bucky is so firm in his belief that Sam be Captain America, because Bucky pretty much runs with the notion that whatever Steve Rogers says, even if I don't agree with it, is obviously the best option because he is Steve Rogers, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have any fallacy to him. Like he always makes the correct decision. So he kind of follows blindly to him, but I didn't want to go on to the next portion without talking about that moment because I thought it was pivotal.
Yeah.
So this episode we don't see really any action for the most part. I mean,
the first opening fight sequence is pretty intense.
It's pretty brutal.
Let me finish my thought. That's what I was going to say. No, just kidding. Yeah, in the warehouse, we see that intense moment between the three main characters. But other than that, I mean, that was it. Like I was expecting to see another situation with the Flag Smashers or something, and we never see anything. Or a scene of Baron Zemo getting away from the Wakandans, or the end of this episode, seeing Baron Zemo in his cell, devising some very Lex Luthor in Justice League, devising a way to break out. But it was mostly dialogue driven and montage driven.
In montage.
Which
gotta love a training montage.
That's right.
Yeah. If you're watching a Marvel show, do you feel a little bit cheated when there's not a lot of action in the episode?
I mean, it depends. I feel like it depends on what else is happening. Ironically, episode 4 felt like there was a ton of action, and there wasn't that much more action in episode 4. just seemed like it's just like the conversations that were happening were very frenetic at the same time. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there were 4 or 5 fight scenes in that, but what's more important to me than the fights is because we know who's supposed to win the fights, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing. We know who's supposed to win, and so we expect those people to come out on top in the fights. But what's more important is the philosophy that those victors represent, and so I want to see more of those philosophies unfolded. And now they've added Batroc back into things, and I like that he's kind of just a straight up mercenary. He doesn't have a lot of philosophy to add, which is
I love that he's GSP.
Yeah, Georges Batroc.
He was my favorite fighter when he was fighting in UFC.
Yeah, maybe they could get Lyoto Machida into something. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in episode 6. Seems like everything's going to go down.
I don't think Batroc's there to get revenge on Sam. I think he's there to get Carly Morgenthau, because I think that Sharon is. I think pretty much she's the power broker. I think that this episode kind of took all that question out of it. She's the one that sent him initially, and actually she got him out of jail, and she's got another mission for him, right? And what if she is the power broker, which it seems like she is? She wants one of those. Since the formula's all gone, she wants one of those super powered people, right, to take back.
Yeah.
So I think he's there to infiltrate and then snag her or one of the, people, super soldiers for her.
So do you think the end of the show is going to end with Carly Morgenthau on a silver platter, essentially getting tested on?
Possibly, or one of her, lieutenants or whatever.
I don't think it would hold as much weight if it was one of the lieutenant.
That's true. It would be more sense for her. Here's the thing. I like when I first heard about Flag Smasher being like gender bent version, right? Carl Morgenthau, the Flag Smasher being Carly Morgenthau.
How original! They just add an I to the end of the name.
At the end of the name, I'm like, how's it going to work? And then they made it an organization with her like at the head of it, and I'm like, okay, this is way better. It's way better than like the two-dimensional comic book bad guy that he is in the comics. And I like the character a lot more. So yeah, I hope she ends up living. I think she will live through this. But will she live through this in the laboratory in Madripoor? That's the question.
I hope so, because that was always one of my biggest issues with Black Panther. I thought Killmonger was an excellent villain. And Michael B. Jordan, and they kill him off at the end of the movie. And I was like, dang, I would have liked to see more of him, and they just kind of end it. So I'm hoping that there's future stories. Doesn't seem like any of the villains besides Thanos last very long.
Tyler, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that actress too that plays Carly Morgenthau. She's always some main character in a rebellion. You got
revolutionary.
Yeah, she was in Solo. She was in Les Mis.
Was she?
Well, she was in the
she was
play.
It's normally me saying like this actress was in this, and this, and Tyler's like, oh, that's the one thing. And now I'm like, I don't recognize this girl from a paper bag, dude. Like I've never seen.
She's very talented. She's very talented.
Yeah. I do like her in this show.
Yeah. And then it was cool her busting out her French in the show, and then she speaks English and she's got a British accent. I was just like, oh man, she's crazy. But I would really like to see more of the Power Broker, and I'm feeling like this is not going to give us that. Like if something happens with the Power Broker in the next episode, I don't know of anything that they've announced that she would be in the future. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's speculated that there will be a season 2 of this show.
Yeah, I guess. It's just I don't know. Like I say, there's just too much going on to where I want everybody to have more screen time, and all these pieces that they're just giving us bits of. It's just there's too many bits. There's too many bits, and not enough bytes. So
we kind of felt that way with WandaVision as well, didn't we? We kind of felt Evan Peters and Agatha and all these things that were so hidden. And then it felt like the last episode was rushed a little bit. And I'm really nervous of what the tide is telling me, that we're going to have the same thing.
Here's the thing. As a comic book fan, I like that they've peppered in all these little aspects from the comics that would never get fleshed out in like a normal movie, right? We would never get all these things in a normal movie, but we get a little taste of them in the series, right? And you feel like, you feel like you want, a tease. You've been teased. I want more of this, right? But the fact that we even get it, right? Like, I don't expect to see much more of, Countess Valentina going forward. Maybe, a cameo here and there, maybe, right? But the fact that they kept that character in, and we actually got to see her in, the MCU is exciting to me. I like, as a comic book fan, I like to see that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, they brought, Batroc back, even though he's still, once again, going to play a minor role in this, the fact that we get to see him. And if it pays off, for me, I'm kind of of the opinion, if some of these things pay off in the future with the Power Broker, like, I think they're going to do more with Sharon, because they hyped up her in this series.
Oh, she's on the posters.
Yeah. All the merchandise. Yeah, all the merchandise with her in it. She's going to be a major player going forward. But I mean, as far as like some of the other small stuff, I'm just excited as a fan to see it happen. So,
well, and it's probably because she's probably on all the merchandise, because she's probably going to sell more merchandise than Sam, Bucky, or
those wanted posters of her on the t-shirts. Those are pretty awesome shirts. I'm like.
Yeah, who doesn't want to put Emily Van Camp on a piece of merchandise? It'll sell like hotcakes.
Exactly. What were you going to say, Tyler?
Oh, I guess I'm just jumping subjects a lot. One thing that Lance has brought up a couple times is the montages, and I thought it was actually really good that they had the montage of him throwing the shield and practicing with it, because previously I've always just felt like the shield just had the spirit of Benny the Jet Rodriguez in it, where he's just like, put out your hand and I'll take care of it. Like, that's
I thought there was a magnet. I always thought there was a magnet like in his cuff or something. Like, I thought there was like an electrical component to it. I didn't realize it was all about.
There was an Age of Ultron, but they dropped that in Age of Ultron. He had the magnetized thing but they dropped that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so
but kudos for the Sandlot reference, by the way.
That's not it, you guys. That's not it. Remember that in the first Avengers movie, Thor takes his hammer, charges it up, and he hits the shield with it. And in that moment, the shield absorbed the spirit and power of Mjolnir to always
so it
return
became Frankenstein?
Captain America.
Well, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So do they have to pay Mary Shelley's estate royalties now?
It's not Frankenstein. It's Mule Shield.
So essentially, Sam is just now an expert billiards player. So
frisbee golf.
Frisbee, yeah.
Frisbee, yeah.
No, I was talking about the angles. Like, that's what I was thinking.
That's a total frisbee golf thing.
Hitting trees and stuff. You can do that in frisbee golf.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
yes, but they're much lighter. And it makes no sense how Sam can throw it that far.
It makes no sense how his arm isn't ripped off.
Yeah, he'd be part of the Triple D Frisbee Golf League.
It's part of in the comics. I don't know if there's this canon in the movies, but in the comics, vibranium, part of the, and they kept playing this in Black Panther too. It absorbs kinetic energy, right?
Right.
Which is why it's able to, do what it does. Even like Spider-Man said, this thing doesn't obey the laws of physics at all. It just doesn't. Even with the kinetic absorption, you're like, well, if that's the case, why wouldn't it just hit the wall and drop to the ground? But
right.
Yeah, what does it do with all that energy it absorbs?
Yeah.
So he's throwing that shield, it ricocheting off all the trees. It goes past him a couple times. I was expecting it to like go through the house at one point, and they never show that. Like I was expecting to enter in through one wall and out the other. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like this unmovable or unstoppable object once it gets on a path. I think that's the one thing with the show is it was kind of sold before it came out that it was going to be like this buddy cop type show, and so I was expecting a lot more humor for the most part, and it's been pretty void of that. Wouldn't you guys say? Like I don't think it met my expectations. Huh?
There's some heavy subjects in this. That's why it's kind of not as humorous.
Real heavy.
Yeah.
I was expecting like a Rush Hour, Lethal Weapon type product, and it's completely gone against those expectations on my part.
You get some humor in it, though. You get some humor, like
some,
like I mean, a little bit here and there when it's appropriate. Like Bucky hitting on Sam's sister. That was great.
I loved it.
That was because Bucky was a player back in the day. He was like,
oh yeah. And then Sam tells him, "Don't hit on my sister." Less than 20 seconds later, he's hitting on her again.
That
lets you know that Bucky knows he can kick Sam's ass. Bucky knows he can kick Sam's ass, and he's going to say, "Hey, don't tell me who I can and can't hit on him, and do it anyway. And you're not going to be able to stop me."
No, he would say you're 85 years too young to tell me who I can and can't.
I don't want him to get with Sam's sister though. I like the restaurant girl.
She wasn't in the show long enough for me to even remember what she looks like. All I know is that she had a one of those cat things in her restaurant that seemed to frustrate Bucky a little bit.
Here's what we need. We need Zemo and Bucky hitting the clubs. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
Let's throw Tobey Maguire there in full emo.
Oh my goodness!
Dance mode.
Night at the Zemo Berry.
So there's a rumor that Tobey Maguire is going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. I think it's a little bit more than a rumor at this point, but not confirmed.
I think he's going to be in the new
to see
Doctor
those
Strange.
two. Yeah, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, potentially. Mm-hmm. I would love to see an opportunity where they get Baron Zemo and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man doing the dance. It will never happen, but
it has to be like an emo, like a scene like in Spider-Man 2, like where he just goes full on
out after he buys an all-black suit.
Right.
It's like, look out, lady.
A three-way dance-off between Peter Quill, Zemo, and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Right.
Right. And we have Marvel's answer tonight at the Roxbury.
That's right.
There you go.
Oh, I broke the window again.
The answer we didn't know we needed.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, did you guys have any more thoughts about this episode? Are we just kind of hanging on the edge of our seats for next week? Or
we're gonna gloss over that end credit scene?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Thank you, Mike. See, I knew I had you on tonight for a reason. Because my compadres didn't bring it up. So I
put it in the text.
Well, we kind of
have
already talked about it.
Here's the thing. I wake up in the morning, my phone's being blasted or being just pile drive by Sam and Max. Oh, this. I can't look at my phone for the first 3 hours of the day because these guys are just like this. And I just pretty much have to.
That was last week. We didn't post spoilers until everybody had seen the show. I was under the impression that everybody woke up at 5:30 to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier like I do.
Okay. So the end credits scene, we see John Walker. And he's in full oh crap, I can't remember his name now.
Full Tony Stark mode.
No, it reminded me of the scene in Aquaman. What's the
bug guy.
Manta.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Manta? Yeah.
Yeah, Black Manta.
It was almost like the same scene, like shot for shot, it seemed like. We see John Walker in his garage or shed building what looks like a fan-made model of Captain America's shield, because we know that's not vibranium.
Nope.
So he's going to die very quickly if he tries to use that.
Adorned with some interesting
he put some
cosplay
military
elements.
medals on there, right?
Yeah.
So we saw that leak a few days ago that there was a second shield, because some eagle eye people noticed that there were some differences in a shield they showed in a promo from the real shield.
Yeah.
So we see him starting to create that. He's going for the same color scheme, red, white, and blue. So we know that he still thinks he's Captain America. He's going to continue to use that moniker, I guess you could say. And then the other scene I want to talk about at the end that I think is going to feed into a confrontation in the next episode is we see Sam open the case, right? He opens the case, and as we know, it's going to be a red, white, and blue Falcon suit, right? Because we've seen some leaked images of him in this suit. So he's going to show up holding his shield in his red, white, and blue Falcon suit. John Walker's going to show up in his Captain America suit, and there's going to be a confrontation between two Captain Americas, a la Endgame and America's Ass. But I thought that was a pretty big scene. I think it's leading directly to a confrontation in the next episode.
I don't think, shield against shield, that obviously the steel shield is not going to hold up against the vibranium one. However, I think that steel shield can still do a lot of damage to those terrorists.
Especially being wielded by a super soldier now, as we know.
So,
well, I'm sure he's lining it with Kevlar or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the real enemy here is toxic masculinity. That's really what it's going for. His shield is a symbol of toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Yep.
Male insecurity. I got to put all my trophies on the shield.
Yeah.
One thing that I did want to bring up that I thought about after Sam was talking about the ironic red lights in that conference room, right? There's another scene that has a weird moment similar to that where it's actually a very cool scene, but where a Winter Soldier goes and meets up with Zemo, and just before he gets taken away, and it's right, but right at the end of that scene when what are they called, the women? Yeah, yes, them. So they come up at a specific moment. It's right after he drops the bullets on the ground, right? So I was like, were they like on their way there? And he's like, okay,
here's what we're gonna do. Hang on, ladies. Yeah. Here's what we're gonna do. He's gonna be standing at the monument. Okay, he's gonna be looking at the monument, and I'm gonna come up like all sneaky, like he's not gonna see the gun in my right hand. He's gonna be looking at the metal hand. It's gonna be in my right hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But there's not going to be bullets, so he's going to be freaking out, right? And then the bullets are going to be in the metal hand, and then I'm going to drop them, and that's when you come in, okay?
Yeah, it's going to be like a mic drop, but it's a bullet drop, and that's when
your cue is going to be when the poop hits the pants, and if that doesn't happen, I'm going to drop bullets in case.
Well, it kind of took him to a moment where Baron thought he was safe, right? Like he thought, oh, it clicked. He's not going to shoot me. I'm safe, and then he kind of. But speaking of right hand, left hand, I really like that. Oh my gosh!
I'm curious to see where this is going.
Master of Hydra's domain, right here.
I like that scene when they're fixing the boat, and he says, "Well, why didn't you use your hand?" He goes, "Well, it's my left. I'm a righty. Like sometimes I don't even realize it's there." I thought that was a very cool comment to make. I don't think there's anything to read into that, but I just thought it was kind of interesting, like. That sometimes Bucky forgets that he's
armless,
not armless, but he forgets that he's super, right? He sometimes he doesn't like you see him going in there and playing or using a regular tool and doing all these things. Like it's not always top of mind. It seems like
my favorite part was when he was playing with the paint scraper like a knife, started kind of flipping it. He's like, he's sitting there at one moment. You guys catch that on the boat? He's like,
Yeah.
He's like, he's a little paint scraper. And then he's like sitting down there. He's like just kind of sitting there looking at what he's doing. And then he starts trying to flip the paint scraper like a knife. Starts playing with it. I was like, yep.
Still got it.
Still got it.
Well, this episode left me excited for the next one. So I hope you guys feel the same. It sounds like we've given all our thoughts, and correct me if I'm wrong. Are you guys ready to rank this episode with our not yet trademarked couch cushion rating system? Mr. Lawyer, get on that. No, I'm just kidding. Mike, you are our guest. You get to go first.
It's on 1 to 5, right? Okay.
1 to 5. You get a throw pillow
You can
Max
add a throw pillow to take it up a
Max was about to quit the show if we didn't give him that damn throw pillow.
As a fill-in for Max, I'll use that throw pillow. I'm going to give it 3 cushions and a throw pillow. Is that the?
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
There you go.
You're a professional, Mike.
See?
It is evident.
Look at that.
Much more of a professional.
Thinking on his feet.
Myself and my 2 mates.
You do a lot better than John Walker. Thinking on your feet.
Yeah. See, that's how I run my show. They're like, "Hey, how about you prep for your show?" I'm like, I just turn on the camera and start rambling.
Yeah. Camera loves me.
We used to do this crazy amount of prep, right? Like we go and look for news articles and stuff we want to talk about on the show. It took too much work. Now we just we're going to talk about this. Show up, be ready.
Well, we came up with 2 bits that were like solid, right? You have the book club bit, which we watch his show every week, but then the "What are you watching?" bit. And that's so good. Like that covers so many bases. Like you can do so much. With that. It's so flexible.
You have better conversations when you just come in like that.
Yeah, off the cuff, man.
Yep.
Off the cuff. Stop taking ourselves too seriously. Well, very good. Tyler, what about you? This episode.
So there was a lot of things that I really liked. There were some other things that I really, really didn't like about this episode. And we don't really get into like the politics much, but I personally really don't like the racial stuff that they're throwing into the show. Like that's not what I want to see in the show, regardless of what your actual stance on it is. Like I kind of want these shows to escape real life, and I don't want that part of it. So I really don't like those parts. But this episode wasn't nearly as bad as episode 2 in that regard. The other things that we've talked about, some of the things felt very rushed and not enough. Too many things happening to make some of the things not, have enough time to really develop. But the action scenes were good. I love Baron Zemo. He might be my favorite character. And even though he was in this, like, he was, only in this episode for a little bit, I really liked the scenes he was in. So, and I think that they did finally get, even though it wasn't, like Sam mentioned, it wasn't done as well as I would have liked. They did finally get to where, Bucky and Falcon are acknowledging that they are comrades, and I wish that maybe would have happened a little bit sooner in the series, but I like that that's finally happened and that we can move on, and hopefully there will be a little bit more banter and stuff to look forward to. So there were definitely some redeeming aspects as well. Because of that, I think I'm going to give it a 3 couch cushions out of 5.
Sam, what about you? Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, so last week's episode was so good. Gosh, I really loved it so much. And it continued some of the same themes, but It did seem like we were taking a breath. This is not meant to be a continuation of action. It's meant to be a contemplative moment for the audience as well as the characters in the show. I don't think that they took full advantage of the opportunity to explain the thought processes of especially Falcon. I feel like Falcon is probably faced with the most decisions here, and his decision on the shield is really the most important one that the rest of the show is kind of built around. But I was really hoping that we would get a continuation of the conversation that they started with the therapist, Bucky and Sam sitting down with the therapist and hashing things out. And instead we got the last half of that conversation with it starts with Bucky saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand." And then we're throwing shields, right? We're throwing the shield around. And I wish it had been a little bit more meaty, a little something else to sink my teeth into. But it's all right. I mean, it seemed like an okay way to go. But that was really kind of the emotional crux of the show that I was hoping to get, and it didn't land as heavy as I thought it would. Otherwise, episode was really fun. It was a good episode, and it was a nice pause before the big storm hits in the finale. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 couch cushions.
So I agree with all of you. I mean, it felt like a lot of things were rushed. Some of those dialogue pieces didn't feel exactly natural because it just seemed like everybody made quick decisions when they probably naturally could have used a little bit more coercion, I guess you could say. So I agree with Sam on that point. So I think I'm going to give this episode a 3 out of 5 as well. So real quick, because Mike's here, I want to talk about this real quick before we call it a night. So we kind of pick and choose when we want to talk about certain news articles and things like that. There was a piece of news this week that Marvel is developing a Wolverine series for Disney Plus. And I wanted to get you guys' thoughts because if it's a Disney series, I doubt it's going to be a big name actor. Probably somebody lower tier, like a Oscar Isaac for Moon Knight and things like that. But the premise of the reported premise is that it is going to, each episode's going to time jump and kind of bring everybody up to speed on what this version of the Wolverine has been throughout his life. Is this something you guys want to see, or would you much rather see a Wolverine movie?
I think we're going to get both. I think this is going to be the report is, again, this is early stages of development, right? That they're talking about this an anthology series for Wolverine, and they want something they can tell his stories without interfering with his role in any X-Men movie. But I don't think the MCU Wolverine's going to debut on a Disney Plus series. I think he'll be in a movie first, and then after that, if this happens, if this is real, I mean, and I believe it's in early development because, right, it just says it's in early development, and that could be, yeah, of course, I can see that completely possible. But I think they're going to have one Wolverine for the MCU, and he's not going to debut in a Disney Plus series. He's going to be in a movie first, and then this anthology series is a great way to tell stories without it interfering with his role in any X-Men movie.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely, Mike. I think he seems like such a big character. It's like taking Spider-Man and debuting him in a show and not Civil War. I think this is going to follow the same track as like kind of what Spider-Man did. Small debut in Civil War, and then his own series of movies, but in this case it'd be TV shows. I don't know if Wolverine is the property that I would want to make an X-Men centric show on. Like,
really?
You know what I mean? Like, I think Wolverine
a lot of stories to be told.
I think Wolverine's a top billed character though. Like, I want to see him So far, all the ones we've gotten, with Scarlet Witch and Vision and Bucky and Falcon, none of them are on the same tier as Wolverine, right? Wolverine is probably one of Marvel's top 5 properties, if not. It just seems like he would be destined for the movies solely. I would love to see.
Yeah, but movies aren't making any money right now.
I guess, but
movies are relegated to streaming service anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess
we'll see where we are in a few years.
2.5 hour productions is probably a better avenue. But I would like to see a show maybe having to deal with the preparatory or whatever they call it, Xavier's School, or a la like Runaways or something like that. Like that seems to be a much better project to build into a TV show. We haven't seen Marvel get into the young adult space yet. As they like to take genres and turn them on their head. The MCU specifically, we have seen Runaways and things like that, but I would have thought that would have been a much
Falcon
better.
Dagger didn't do it for you in that space.
That's not MCU,
isn't it?
No,
it's not Marvel Studios. It was
Marvel Television.
It was still under Perlmutter, not under Feige.
Yeah, we haven't seen Feige take that genre, because Runaways, I would say, is more in the young adult genre than even Cloak and Dagger is. But they still don't tie into the larger MCU. Those came out around the same time that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was like, okay, they don't want to play with us, so we're not going to play with them anymore. Is essentially that's when those shows came out.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of wish New Mutants was more of a disaster.
New Mutants it's just a shame that that's a perfectly cast movie that we will never get to use those people, those actors as those characters, right?
I loved everybody in that movie.
They were all perfect for their characters.
Yeah, it's just the writing was kind of poor.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't Dark Phoenix.
It got shelved so many times, and it was like, well, how bad is this movie actually going to be?
Yeah.
And then when we got it, it was just like, oh, it's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, at least if it had been horrible, we could have watched it and laughed, and it could be the Marvel samurai cop, and that'd be.
It felt like a side story to a bigger movie.
Yeah.
Is what it felt like.
Well, it was supposed to spawn a trilogy, wasn't it? Like the New Mutants, they were supposed to be future ones. But I love everybody that was cast in that movie. It's just a shame.
Yeah. You'll never get that more perfect cast for the characters.
If you look at everything that comes after Days of Future Past, I would say it's probably the better of all those.
Yeah, what a bar to set there.
Yeah, not saying too much.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to see them get in the young adult space and do a Disney Plus TV show about that, the Marvel. But yeah, that's the one headline I want to talk to you guys about. Was there anything else you guys want to talk about before we call it a night?
We're talking about Wolverine and what we might like to see from a series from him. I honestly so my comic reading days were when I was from ages 7 to 13 maybe, right? So I don't remember some of it, and some of it I didn't get super deep into, but I know that Wolverine was born in early 1800s or something, right?
Yeah.
Logan.
Okay. So one of my favorite movies is The Last Samurai. And I know that the Wolverine story is he's lived so long, and he's he's basically the best martial artist in the world because he's trained with so many martial artists over so much time. And he spent a lot of time in Japan. I would love a Last Samurai-ish movie with Wolverine in it, where he's in the 1800s. It's during a Japanese Civil War, and he's a secret weapon, right? I would love to see something like that. That would be super. Yeah, with the bone claws, and and maybe it's a time when he's not even had his powers that long. He's still kind of learning how to use them. Like, I think that's something like that would be super cool to see. And maybe not long after, like, they change all the characters in Marvel. Like, maybe not long after that is when he loses his memory, and he just becomes like a nomad after that.
Well, he loses his memory in the Weapon X program.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's why I was saying they can change the character. So,
but the thing is, with an anthology series, you can tell all those stories. You can have that story. You can have him as a Weapon X story. You could have him as the team before he was part of Weapon X. You could have him in Madripoor. They already teased his bar in that Madripoor episode, the Princess Bar.
Maybe he's the power broker.
There's a lot of opportunities with an anthology series like that.
I want to see. I want to see. I think that would be a great way to introduce Deadpool in the MCU. Like, yes, we've already had the first 2 Deadpool movies, but like maybe have an episode where in that Weapon X episode he meets Deadpool. I just don't know if Ryan Reynolds wants to do TV again.
Well, he's on TV all the time in his Mint Mobile commercials. So
yeah, I showed my coworkers that Rick Moranis one. They're like, Lance, why do you think this is funny? I was like, because it's freaking Rick Moranis. They just didn't get it. They didn't get it. No, but that is the premise of the show, Tyler. One episode is going to cover one time period, and then the next episode will cover another time period in his life. So I'm assuming it'll be 8 to 10 episodes, each covering like a specific point in his life and then catching up to current.
Yeah, I my fear about that is that they're going to do the same thing again, where it's like they're doing a whole bunch of things but not giving enough, one thing enough attention for it to be compelling.
What if though, Tyler, what if it was like a Christopher Nolan time exploration piece where he's doing all these things in different timelines, but they all meet up at one specific point in the future where he needs to put all those pieces together? What about that?
That could be cool, except for then it would be 25% slow motion, and I don't know if we can.
What if we added?
We would need subtitles.
What if we added a sound effect to the slow motion that was something like?
Well, okay, so Sam, that would be very cool. But
some timey-wimey baloney.
I feel like when we have fan theories where we sit down and think what could be really cool, it always like goes way under like the bar of what like the fan theories are and what they could do with the series. So that could be a very cool idea. Will they actually do that? Maybe. I don't know.
You gotta think of it like a Quantum Leap series, right? Where every episode's a different time, right?
That's how I look at Loki. That's how I look at Loki.
Yeah,
something like that. You just gotta get back in things. We're all spoiled. We gotta get our mindset back into the the old ways series used to be, right? Or standalone, hour long, stories, episodic episodes, or series, We gotta get back to that kind of mindset.
At any point through the whole series and be caught up.
Here's the difference though. Well, you have Quantum Leap. Quantum Leap was, it was about some guy jumping
Sam Beckett, show some respect.
Well, he was jumping randomly throughout time, right? It wasn't like this is a guy who we know in the future becomes like a superhero on like one of the most notorious superhero teams of all time, right? Like that's what we weren't building up to something like that. That's what the series is meant to do. And that's not what Quantum Leap was. It was just follow this guy's adventures,
right.
And so very different elements. It could be very cool where, like Sam said, if there were all these different points in time that were important to like an overall plot to where, you know, these something about these time periods accumulated to something in the future. But
well, it all culminates to him getting in to Weapon X.
Well, sure, but I mean, he could be in that Weapon X without that. Like, they could have just said, "Oh, he's got cool powers. Put him in Weapon X." You know, like so they
Like
don't.
Every episode's got to start with him in the X Mansion with all the mutants, and then him telling another student a story about his past. Right? Back in my time, I remember the time.
Oh, I just
If
figured
he was
it out.
Old Man Logan in the beginning of the episode, sitting in a rocking chair, telling stories and it flashing back.
No. Wolverine opens a Cobra Kai dojo in Professor X's school for the gifted.
That's it. That's the series.
There we
Disney
go.
Plus. Come on.
Wolverine meets Johnny Lawrence. Yes.
It's not Eagle Fang. It's not Eagle
Not
Fang.
Eagle Fang.
Eagle Fang.
It's Wolverine Claw.
I love that. Oh, and Cobra Kai was just like, but eagles don't have
What
fangs.
beats a
He goes, so
cobra?
what? It's cool.
What beats a cobra? A mongoose. No, a real animal.
Oh
I love
man.
Johnny Lawrence.
Well, with that note, I think it's good we call it a night. Huh? What do you guys think? Because we're starting to get into.
Yeah, our ideas
I gotta
can't
tell
get
you-
any better. It doesn't get any better.
I had a
No.
blast tonight, guys. I tell you what, I don't know what was more exciting for me. You know, whether the use of the word, you know, complimentary or the Sandlot reference. I don't know which one was more exciting for me, but both were cool, and I'm just happy to be part of it. So,
And then,
All right,
Mike,
you're
one more time. How can they find you? How can our listeners find the Grizzled Geek?
they can check out youtube.com/The Grizzled Geek, where you can we have podcast every Friday live at 6 p.m. Arizona time, or check out any of our reaction shows that we do during the week, or wherever you listen to podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, anywhere. We're out there. The Grizzled Geek. We're not proud. We throw that name out there everywhere. It's all the Grizzled Geek.
Well, one of these days when you do with Kirsten these millennial does it hold up
Does it hold up? Yeah.
things, I want to come on one of those shows, man. Give me
All right,
something,
yeah.
because
You got
if
it,
I
man.
love it, I will defend it with a fury. So,
Awesome.
and I love Kirsten and Doug, so it'd be nice to talk to those guys again.
Yeah.
But we are the Couch Crunchers. Very special thanks to our guest tonight, Mike. Make sure to check us out every Friday right here on YouTube at 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Make sure to tune in to the Grizzled Geek on Fridays at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and our friends Modern Comic Mayhem on Saturday nights at 7 on YouTube. So until next time, keep on geeking on, everybody.